Good morning. Welcome to our Benefit Specialist video conference, and thank you for us. We have a pretty full agenda for you today, so we'll try to get through it in time so you can get back to all of the important things that you are doing. But before we get started, I do want to give a couple quick reminders. If you are on time analysis at this point in time, the TA codes for each section of this video conference are on the agenda, which was emailed out to you yesterday along with all of the links. So they are there for your convenience. Also, we did have a Wombat cybersecurity training that was due last Friday, the 25th. That one was on the USB device safety. If you have already completed that, thank you so much for being on top of things. If you have not completed it, make sure that you get in and you do get that done right away. It should really only take you absolutely no more than 5 to 10 minutes. So find some time in your busy day and get that taken care of. So this morning we do want to go over a few of our annual trainings that we do every year. So we'll be talking about civil rights this morning. We'll also be talking about caseload management, and then the annual SSA and IRS recap for that. We also have Christy Arneson on with us, and she wants to talk with us a little about the government shutdown. So I will turn it over to Christy. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for letting me join you this morning. Just a few things. I know it shows 15 minutes. I'm not sure I need 15 minutes. But just a quick update I wanted to start with. Again, I know you guys got some emails from me, but again, wanted to take this opportunity and as close of person as possible to say thank you for your really, really hard work and dedication in getting those benefits out early for our families in Wyoming due to the government shutdown. We know that it was a short amount of time that we asked you to do a very large task, and you guys really did an amazing job at that. So not only thank you from me, but thank you from the Wyoming families that received those benefits. And it's just something that we all should be very, very proud of. So again, just wanted to take a minute to say thank you to all of you for that. And we all know, or if you didn't know, the government reopened last Friday. It is temporarily opened for 3 weeks in the hopes that they will come to an agreement. If they don't, the plan, as it was said by the president, was then the government will shut down again. At this point in time, we don't know what the reopening of the government means for us, for SNAP, for our families. So up here at the state office, we continue. Andy's doing a really great job, and Corinne trying to keep their, keep on the pulse. We haven't heard anything from FNS or USDA at this point in time with regards to whether or not there is funding for March. So we'll continue to work on that. As soon as we know anything, we'll ensure that you all know so that we can plan accordingly. So I think a lot of people thought maybe we knew something because the government reopened, but we wanted to reassure you that at this point in time, we don't know anything different than what we knew before last Friday. Once we do know something, we will share that with you, and we will hope that there is a plan and some funding for March, but right now we just don't know. And that's all I really had with the government shutdown. Val, I don't know if there's the opportunity for questions. If there are, if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to ask those. Otherwise, just thank you for all you do and for sticking tight with us during these really difficult times.
Thank you, Christy. We don't have the back and forth for questions. What we usually do is we have everyone send me their questions, and then we'll put together a Q&A. So we can do the same thing with this. If you have questions regarding the government shutdown for Christy, we will send them to me, and we'll get those answered for you and sent out to the field. So thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. All right. So I would also like to say thank you. I'll tell you, the teamwork that I witnessed across the states over the last couple weeks has been really fantastic. And it's great to see everyone come together, work a little extra hard to make sure that our citizens are taken care of. So that was fantastic to see, and we do appreciate it. All right, so we had the annual SSA and IRS disclosure forms were due. It's the beginning of the year. That's when we get all of this housekeeping stuff kind of taken care of. So what is expected of all of us is that we must complete the Economic Security Division Handling Confidential Information training that was sent out to all of you. In that email, there was the PowerPoint link for that training, which you have to go through. It's self-directed learning. There's also a link for the Google Forms quiz. It's the corresponding quiz that goes along with that training. You do have to complete the quiz. Doesn't take very long at all. That Google Form quiz will collect your email, collects your score, and that acts as your electronic signature for those disclosure forms. So there is no longer a need to print the SSA and IRS disclosure forms and to send them to me or to Brandon. The Google quiz that you complete actually acts as your electronic signature. That is your confirmation that you have completed the training and that you understand the training materials and what is expected of you as far as confidentiality and protecting our clients' confidentiality. That's really the big takeaway, is that we are privy to a lot of extremely sensitive information. We have to have that information in order to complete our daily work here. And so we have to be sure that along with that, we take the responsibility of keeping that, safeguarding that information for our clients very seriously, that we are not sharing their information, that we are taking steps to keep that safe. Those steps, which are all discussed in that training, are things such as making sure you lock your computer when you walk away. And there are two different methods that you can do that. You can lock it with the Control-Alt-Delete or the Winky L button. Those are discussed in the training as well. Making sure that when you are conducting interviews, you have all confidential information put away. There's nothing sitting out, no other files out, that you don't have another case up on your screen, you know, the previous case that you were working or anything like that. Also, that we're very careful in the clerical area of our offices not to discuss personal and private information there. Make sure that we're bringing people back to our offices to talk about that. And then we're taking all of those steps, just like you would want someone to protect your information. We are tasked with that here. So that training was already emailed out to you along with the quiz. The final absolute drop dead deadline for that is this Thursday, January 31st. You have to have that completed. If it is not completed at that point in time, you will lose your EPICS access. This is all part of our permission to use and access EPICS and all of the information that's in there. So make sure that you get that done so that Brandy doesn't have to take you off the EPICS list, and then we have to go through all of the process to get you back on. All right. So with that, we're going to jump right into the civil rights training. So give me a moment and I will get my screen shared. All right, so this is our annual civil rights training for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. What is expected of you is that all staff should receive this training on all aspects of civil rights compliance. Staff should be able to identify a civil rights complaint if you do receive one, and that you should know what to do if you receive that complaint. Also to understand that it is the basic right of the individual to file a complaint. Civil rights are the fair and equitable treatment in the workplace and with the delivery of our programs. That is civil rights at its basic core. We will discuss discrimination. Discrimination is defined as different treatment which makes a distinction of one person or a group of persons from others, either intentionally, by neglect, or by the actions or lack of actions, which are based on race, color, national origin, age, sex, disability, religion, and political beliefs. State agencies, local agencies, and other subrecipients are required to obtain data by race and ethnic category on potentially eligible populations, applicants, and participants in their program service area. Systems for collecting actual racial and ethnic data must be established and maintained for FNS programs, with the exception of certain food distribution programs. We ask all program applicants and participants to identify all racial categories that apply, and self-identification or self-reporting is the preferred method of obtaining data. It's the most accurate method. When we're talking about race and ethnic categories, it is broken down into two parts. One is ethnicity, or is that individual Hispanic or Latino or not Hispanic or Latino? And the other is race, which can be broken down into American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Black or African American, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander, and white. All right, so we do collect data and we do report that to our federal partners. The purpose of doing so is simply to determine how effectively FNS programs are reaching potentially eligible persons and their beneficiaries. And we do a fantastic job of this here in the state of Wyoming. State and local agencies should compare their participant data with potentially eligible persons within their service areas. If there is any underrepresentation of certain groups, it will be necessary to investigate the cause for it and then provide additional outreach as needed. Data collection also assists in selection of compliance review locations and complete reports. We do have to complete those reports as required, which we do. All right. It's also a means of monitoring civil rights compliance. State agencies shall establish a system for the collection of racial, ethnic data of each person applying for and receiving benefits. That is done through our application process and through our interview process. Applicants shall be assured that the information is required for and used for statistical purposes only. It has absolutely no effect on their eligibility for our programs. And caseworkers are required to collect the data at the point of the application. And if an applicant does not consent to the self-identification method, the caseworker will, through visual observation, determine the applicant's race or ethnic origin and mark applicable category. It is always better to have that individual self-identify. Like I said, it is the most accurate method. So if you see on the application that that question has not been answered, let them know that this is for statistical and data collection purposes only, and that it has no bearing on their eligibility for the program that they're applying for, and ask them to complete it. If they absolutely will not do that, then you are able to make that determination. All right, in instances where racial ethnic data is collected via online systems, provisions must be made for the applicant participants to self-identify. The ability to verify that data by some manner of signing a printout must be available, and data must be collected and retained by the service delivery point for each program, as specified in the program regulations, instructions, policies, and guidelines. Records must be maintained for 3 years and access restricted only to authorized personnel, and then submitted as requested to FNS. That is all handled at the state level, and we do have those processes in place. All right, bilingual requirements and program access. Individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and who have a limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand English is what we're talking about with the bilingual requirement. Recipients of federal financial assistance have a responsibility to take reasonable steps to ensure meaningful access to their programs and activities by persons with limited English proficiency. Factors to consider in addressing individuals with limited English proficiency are the number or proportion of LEP persons served or encountered in our population, the frequency with which LEP individuals come in contact with the program, the nature and importance of that program, activity, or service, and resources available to the recipient and the cost of those resources. Current SNAP rules do require state agencies to use appropriate bilingual personnel and printed materials in areas in the state. We do have our DFS 100S Spanish application, so that is available. Some of our offices do have bilingual personnel on staff. We also have the language line available for you to use as a translation service for the interview. So there are things that we have, tools available to us to make sure that limited English proficiency individuals are able to apply for, go through the interview process, and have their eligibility determined for any program that we offer. Pardon me, I'm getting over a cold, so I'm trying not to lose my voice. In general, each certification office that provides service to an area containing approximately 100 single language minority low-income households must routinely provide both bilingual certification materials and bilingual staff or interpreters. We do have those. Certification materials include the application, which we have, change report forms and notices to the household. Bilingual services also are required in areas with a total of less than 100 low-income households if a majority of those are of a single language minority. Services described in this section for SNAP activities include, but are not limited to, work requirements, electronic benefit transfer, the EBT cards, outreach, and nutrition education. All right. And where a significant number or proportion of the population eligible to be served needs service or information in a language other than English in order to be informed of the participant in the program. So we do have to take reasonable steps to provide that information to those households. We do have all of that available here, so make sure that you are familiar with that you are familiar with our language line and the code that needs to be used. If you have not used it, please be assured that it is very simple to use. It's very convenient. You just dial this 800 number. Our 6-digit client ID number is the 537001. And we cannot use children as our translators. A lot of limited English proficiency households may have children who are bilingual. They are able to, they usually translate for their parents, but for our purposes, we do not want to use children. We want to either use a bilingual personnel as our translator or the language line. All right. Moving right along to equal opportunity for religious organizations. This ensures a level playing field for the participation of faith-based organizations and other community organizations in the USDA programs. Many churches and faith-based organizations do provide food bank services to their communities. So ensuring that they have that level playing field is accomplished by prohibiting discrimination on the basis of religion, religious belief, or religious character in the administration of the federal funds, and allowing a religious organization that participates in the USDA program to retain its independence and continue to carry out its mission, provided that direct USDA funds do not support any inherently religious activities such as worship, religious instruction, or proselytization. Also, clarifying that faith-based organizations can use space in their facilities to provide the USDA-funded service. They can use space in their churches to operate the food bank, and they may receive USDA funds for that food bank. They do not have to remove any of the religious art, icons, scriptures, or other symbols from that area. But they cannot discriminate upon their program availability based on the individual's religious beliefs. So they do have to open those up to the community, regardless of anyone in need's faith. All right, disability discrimination, that is all covered in Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. It does prohibit discrimination based on disability in programs or activities receiving federal financial assistance. In addition, it prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in all services, programs, and activities provided to the public by state and local governments. And these civil rights laws protect persons with disabilities if they are potential applicants or participants in any FNS funded programs. As programs and offices modernize, it is imperative that websites, including state and local agency websites and online application systems, are readily accessible to and usable by persons with visual impairments and other disabilities. And then all programs must ensure physical accessibility for buildings and facilities, particularly to persons in wheelchairs and with mobility disabilities. And we do our best to make sure that our facilities are ADA compliant. There is also an obligation to ensure that members of the public are provided accommodations in order to access SNAP information, applications, and assistance, things such as Braille, large print, or audio material, and providing also sign language interpreters for persons with hearing disabilities, and that may be necessary to be able to adequately communicate with these applicants and clients. All right, so how are clients informed of their civil rights? Clients should be informed of their civil rights at every application, at the time of interview. We do have it listed on all of our SNAP notices, and every office should have the "And Justice for All" poster displayed prominently in the clerical area. That is what the "And Justice for All" poster looks like. So we do have the civil rights listed in the application. That is something that you are expected to go over with clients at the beginning of every interview, whether it is a new application, a recertification. It doesn't matter if it's the first time or the 100th time that you have gone over those with that client. They do need to be gone over every single time. All right, we also have public notification systems. And the purpose of that is to inform applicants, participants, and potentially eligible persons of program availability, program rights and responsibilities, the policy of non-discrimination, and the procedure for filing a complaint. The elements of that, starting with program availability, is to inform applicants, participants, and potentially eligible persons of their program rights and responsibilities and the steps necessary for participation. Also goes over the complaint information that advises applicants and participants at the service delivery point, so at the interview, of their right to file a complaint, how to file a complaint, and the complaint procedures. That is all listed in the client's rights and responsibilities that you are to go over at the beginning of each interview. And also the non-discrimination statement. It informs our clients through materials, through going over the rights and responsibilities of our non-discrimination statement. We do not discriminate here for any reason based on any of those discrimination items that we talked about at the very beginning of this training. All right, so methods of that public notification: prominently displaying that "And Justice for All" poster. Also inform potentially eligible persons and grassroots organizations of our programs or changes in the programs. We do mass mail if there is a change coming up. Also radio ads, TV ads. We list flyers in a lot of other public areas. So we do a great job of making sure that we are reaching our communities and informing them of any changes and also their rights and for the programs. All right, we do include the non-discrimination statement on all of our publications, websites, posters, and informational material, including the notices that are sent through EPICS, and convey the message of equal opportunity in all photos and other graphics that are used for our programs. We have our non-discrimination statement. You should be going through that. There, we do have the script too that you should, you can use that script, which covers everything that needs to be discussed and gone over in detail. All right, and we'll just move right along over this. All right, so complaints of discrimination. A complaint must be filed within 180 days from the date of the act of discrimination. That complaint can be written, it can be verbal, it can be anonymous. It must contain minimum information, and the use of the complaint form is not required. We don't have to have a specific form for it to be a discrimination complaint. FNS and authorized states must investigate that complaint within 90 days. So the applicant has 180 days from the date that the discrimination occurred to report it, and then we have 90 days to investigate that. States must process that in a state plan. We do have all of that in place at the state level. We have our system in place, and we do have the a system in place also for keeping the complaints apprised, the FNS Civil Rights Division Complaints Branch apprised of the case status as well. So what do you do? What is your responsibility if you do receive a discrimination complaint? The first thing that you must do is notify your supervisor immediately. The state ombudsman will work directly with the individual filing the complaint and the Office of Civil Rights, and the investigation will then be handled at the federal level. All right, so the civil rights complaint procedure will entail at the federal level that they will obtain the name, address, and telephone number of contacting the individual alleging the discrimination, the location and name of the organization or office that is accused of the discriminatory practices, the nature of the incident or action of the aspect of program administration that led the person to alleged discrimination, and the basis for the alleged discrimination. Was it based on age, race, color, sex, disability, religious creed, national origin, or political belief? It will refer age complaints to the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Services, review and evaluate facts of the investigation. They will write a decision informing the complainant of any follow-up or closure action and provide appeal information, and then refer recommendation and seek concurrence from headquarters. Discrimination of non-compliance. So if we are found to be in non-compliance, that would be a factual finding that any civil rights requirement as provided by law, regulation, policy, instruction, or guidelines is not being adhered to by a state agency, local agency, or other subrecipient. Steps must be taken to obtain voluntary compliance. So if there is a discrimination complaint, it is then investigated at the federal level. If we are found to be in non-compliance of following proper non-discrimination procedures, then we must voluntarily take steps to resolve that issue. All right, so civil rights compliance areas. Through public notification, assurances, through training, which we are doing this training, and we do that once a year, through our data collection and reporting systems, our compliance reviews, discuss civil rights complaints, and then resolution of the non-compliance. Compliance reviews are to examine the activities of our state agency to determine our adherence with civil rights as well as program requirements. FNS civil rights and program staff review state agencies, and then state agencies must report significant findings to the reviewed entity, which is all done, again, at the state level. All right. The state agencies must determine that all state, local agency, or other subrecipient program and applicants are in compliance with civil rights requirements prior to approval for federal financial assistance. Pre-approval, pre-award review report must be maintained in the appropriate program files. We do have that system in place as well. And program applicants and recipients must provide relevant and current civil rights information for any applications or approval of specific projects. All right, so FNS does review us in 11 different areas. Those areas are review of lower level agencies, our data collection counts to make sure that they are valid. That is part of the self-declaration of race and ethnic origin, and we input that information into EPICS. That's another reason that our coding in EPICS is so important, because that is all collected in data and then compiled into our reports that are sent to FNS. Also, that our program records have restricted access. We do. That's all handled at the state level. That program requirements are applied uniformly. That we have public notification systems in place. That we have a complaint process in place. That we are providing this training. That non-discrimination statement is being used. that the state agency is training local agencies, which we are, and analysis of denied applications, and then also vendor compliance. All right, so along same lines are routine compliance reviews. The scope of state agency or FNS reviews include the following 8 items: that eligible persons and households have an equal opportunity to participate. That is really what this all boils down to. That our case records are coded by race or ethnic origin. Offices are displaying the "And Justice for All" poster in a prominent location. That we are going over the non-discrimination statement. That we're providing that within all of our materials. The availability of program information to eligible persons, program applicants, and participants are there, that racial and ethnic data is collected and maintained for 3 years, that we have a complaint process, and that we are providing the training. All right. It's all the legal references for this information. And let's see. All right. So under the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996, that states that states and other welfare service providers have legal obligations to comply with federal civil rights laws that prohibit discrimination. It gives states broad discretion in how to implement their welfare programs. It also imposes several new obligations on states, including implementing programs with increased work requirements for welfare beneficiaries. So you can look at all of that for more information if you like. Also, if you have any questions regarding this, as always, you can send those questions to me. We will compile the Q&A and send that out to the state. So that is our civil rights training for the year. Make sure that you know what your responsibility is should you receive a discrimination complaint. What your steps are. Beyond that, it will be handled at the state and federal level. So you are to make sure that that information is reaching the clients. You do that by going over the rights and responsibilities at the beginning of every single interview. Also recognizing if you do have a civil rights complaint, and then getting that information immediately to your supervisor so that the remainder of the process can begin. All right, moving right along to caseload management. Take a quick sip of coffee here. All right, so why is it important for you to have a caseload management plan? Well, because the effects of an unmanaged workload have a negative impact on your practice and caseload outcomes. They also increase stress on you as the case manager in an already stressful position. We don't want to do that. And increased stress can lead to burnout and turnover. We don't want that either. So the first thing that you can do with caseload management is to plan your time properly. It's all about time management. If you can master time management, then the caseload management goes hand in hand with that. Start by scheduling your interviews appropriately. Make sure that you're booking enough appointment time to cover more than just the interview. The interview there's a beginning, which is before that interview actually even starts. That's your prep time. And then there's the follow-up as well after you've already said goodbye to the applicant. Then you have more follow-up information after that interview. So make sure you're scheduling enough time for all of that. You want to make sure that you are able to complete your pre-interview interface checks for all assistance unit members. So you have that information at your fingertips ready to go. Also, that you familiarize yourself with the case file. What do you already have in the case file? What verifications are due to be renewed at this point in time? And you have all of that done before you even walk into that interview. It's kind of your game plan, and that sets you up for the most successful interview possible. Start your narrative with that information before you even start the interview. Make sure that you're getting all of your interface information into the narrative. And then afterwards, do your post-interview work, which includes processing, pending, sending any notices, and narrating. That's so important. Narrating the interview immediately so that you don't forget all of the tiny little details and nuances that are that occur within each case. So that will, if you can get all of that done, you schedule enough time for the interview that you're able to do all of that, then you start and you finish it and you put it away, and that helps you to move on to the next task with like a clear mind, and you're not bouncing back and forth between things, which really streamlines your processes and helps with the caseload management. All right, the other thing is phone calls. You don't want to be at the mercy of your phone. That can be so stressful. So if you are a person who needs uninterrupted time to process applications and change reports, the phone, ringing and answering the phone, can really be a hindrance. You're in the middle of working something, you're on a roll, you're moving along, and then you take a phone call and you have to jump into another case and look at something else, then you come back. And it takes time to reacclimate yourself to what you were working on previously, to remember where you were, what you've accomplished, and where you were headed with it. So it's a lot of lost time. One thing that you can do to prevent that from happening is to take control of that phone traffic. Plan specific times of the day to return your phone calls. And don't just plan them in your mind, put them on your Google Calendar. You can put your phone on Do Not Disturb throughout the day, set a half an hour in the morning and a half an hour in the afternoon, or however much time it will take you, that is your return phone call time. During that time, you check your voicemail, you return phone calls, you answer those questions. So you're able to work uninterrupted on a case when you're processing things, and then you have specific time where you're able to return those phone calls without having other tasks that you're trying to do at the same time. So put that on your Google Calendar and utilize that Do Not Disturb setting. Make sure that you are keeping a phone log for that. You do need to have an organization, kind of a checks and balances system in place for that. So check your phone messages at least once a day. Twice a day is preferable if you can check them before lunch and then before you leave for the day. Keep a phone log of when the phone message was left for you, what it was, when you returned it. If you weren't able to get through, make sure you mark on there that you left a voicemail, the date and time that you called them back, so that you have that check and balance system for yourself. And then make sure that you are returning all phone calls within 24 hours, preferably before the end of the same day. The agency expectation is within 24 hours, preferably same day. If your supervisor requires that you return those phone calls every day before you leave your office, then that is the process that you do need to follow. All right, we do have tools available to us that make caseload management so much easier, and we love these tools. Make sure you're utilizing them. For more than just the pre-interview interfaces, we have other things available to us within Rave. We have our ABOD report that will help you to keep track of every case that you have that has an ABOD. How many months of free ABOD months have they used? How many do they have left? Are they in their extended months? Will their case close when they have, will it like coincide when they have used all of their free ABOD months, or do you need to go in and take action on that? Do you need to send the notices and go in and manually close it out? All of that information is in the ABOD report, so make sure you're using that. Also, apps received over X days. If you have an application that you've pended, you're waiting for verification to come back, you can keep track of which applications you've had for 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, and you can input any day into that to see, okay, these are the applications that I have that are 25 days old, and I've got to do a final determination on these right away. So you can go in and you can keep track of that way. We also have the app status and decision time frame within Rave. You can check your caseload at issuance deadline every month. You can go in, look at your entire caseload, and make sure that everything that should be authorized is authorized and that it has rolled and benefits will be issued for that case. You can look at the caseload summary. Also, the monthly new hire report And then monthly potentially TANF report will tell you all of your cases that look like they might potentially be financially eligible for TANF. That gives you kind of a go-to list when you do see them for SNAP recertifications or applications. You are able then to discuss the TANF program, the POWER program with them, and see if it's something that they would be interested in. And then our weekly denied and closed case list. So do not underestimate the value of these reports within the RAVE system to help with your caseload management. All right, so with those reports, again, come up with a game plan. Game plan is pretty much everything when we're talking about caseload management and time management. Set time aside every Monday morning. Put it on your calendar. This is my time to check my caseload report, to see my apps received over X days report, also to check and act on your PAL alerts. Is there anything that needs to be taken care of this week that I need to put on my to-do list for this week? You can also do it monthly with the new hire report and your ABOD report. So at the beginning of every month, put time aside on your Google Calendar. This is my time to check the new hire report and act on anything that needs to be acted on. And this is my time to check the ABOD report and act on those as well. So you just come up with a game plan, build great habits to make sure that that kind of background work is still being taken care of, that you're getting it done. Some other tips and tricks. Use lists. Make lists of everything that needs to be done by the end of the day, by the end of the week. When you come in Monday morning and you check those, make lists. This is what needs to be done. And in between interviews and processing cases, work on that. This needs to be done by the end of the week list, or this needs to be done by the end of the day list. Lists allow you to see what needs to be done at a glance. We all think that we can remember everything. I'll tell you, the older I get, the more I know that is completely untrue. I need lists. I work off of lists. If it's not on a list, I will forget it. They also help to ensure that you're not missing something important, that you don't have that tomorrow morning when you're getting ready for work light bulb moment that's, oh man, I forgot this one thing that I really thought I would remember yesterday. If it's on that list, you don't have the opportunity to forget that. And it does feel great to cross things off. It feels like you're accomplishing something wonderful as you're crossing those off and getting them done. So, and that feel good will help to motivate you to continue being productive and getting things done. Prioritize those lists. That's the other thing. Make sure that you have them prioritized. What is most important? What is time sensitive? It has to be done right away. And what do I still have a little bit of leeway on? Some steps to making that prioritization is, is it a power case? If it is, move that to the top of your list. You know that you need to process the change reports that you receive from the case manager and things like that quickly. So move it to the top of your list. Is the application nearing that 20-day deadline? If it is, move it to the top of the list. Make sure we can get that done timely. Has the change report been in your office for a week? If it has been, move it to the top of your list. We know we have 10 days to process change reports, but that's like our worst case scenario done by 10 days. Ideally, if it comes in on a Monday, we should have that done by the end of this work week, by Friday. So if it's been in your office for a week, it's got to be moved to the top of the list to make sure that you're getting that done right away. And you probably have systems in place, like your mail that comes in, you probably keep it stacked in chronological order so that you're rolling through those. Oldest ones are getting done first. And that helps. If you have a system like that is kind of your autopilot system, it helps to ensure that these things are getting done as well. All right, and this is just kind of a bonus. Start your day off with a quick win. If you walk in the door and you start with your hardest case, say it's your work day, you're not interviewing, you're just processing cases. If you walk in and you start with your hardest case, that can really drain you. And by the time you finish it, you've kind of lost your motivation and your focus to continue doing more. But if you start with a quick win, you start with something that takes little to no time at all, you're able to mark that off your list, and then you get that feel good for marking things off of your list, and it motivates you to keep going. So you have a sense of achievement from crossing those things off of your list. So start every day with a quick win. Give yourself a quick, I got this done, pat on the back, and then you'll keep going for the rest of that day. All right, you can utilize the DFS 101 checklist when we're talking about lists to keep track of what has been submitted and what you're still waiting on. You can make a list for the client for their items to bring back, and then you can use the DFS 101 checklist for items that come back. And when they come in, because we know things don't always come in a nice little paperclip stack that every verification you ask for is there. You might get an employer statement today, and you might get a bank statement tomorrow, or in a couple of days. Sometimes they trickle in. So it's important that we're able to keep track of that, and that you have a system in place. The DFS 101 is one way that you can do that. You can also, I know some offices will print their pen notice that goes out from Epics. They print the pen notice and they put that in the file, and then they're able to mark things off as they come in that way. If you do use the DFS 101, and I think we've discussed this before, we just ask that once you've marked everything off and you're able to process that application, whether it's approve or deny, that DFS 101 checklist does not stay in the file, because sometimes it can be confusing between your checklist and the notice that went out. We should be using the exact same language from one to the other to prevent confusion, but we'll also just pull it out and put that in your shred box so that we're not leaving that in the file. All right, and then create a system that helps you prioritize according to timeframes. Like I mentioned with change reports that come in, if you have a system in place where as those are brought in, they're kept kind of in chronological order, so you're always working the oldest ones first through the newest, that helps you to have that autopilot that's going all the time. The same thing with your pended files. If you have a system in place where, the front of the drawer is the files that everything is due back sooner, and then it gets a little older as you move to the back of the drawer. Another thing to keep in mind is make sure that someone knows your system. Some of our offices, the supervisor actually organizes how this is to be done, and you're expected to do it that way. Some of us have a little more autonomy with how we want to organize our caseloads, and that is fine, but someone should be able to walk in and know where things are at and how things are stored and what your system is in case there's ever an emergency. If something happens and they need to come in and help out, whether you're out for an extended period of time or maybe you just need a little help, your supervisor should know, people should know what your organization system is. So make sure to share that with others in your office. All right, sticky notes can be your best friend. They'll help to remind you of where you were before being interrupted with another task. If you're working a case and someone comes in with a question, or you need to maybe walk up front to answer a client question, leave yourself a little note with a sticky note, stick it in that file. That way when you come back to it, you remember, okay, this is exactly where I was. And then maybe you don't need 5 or 10 minutes to kind of reacclimate yourself to where you were and what you were doing. Leave yourself notes on case files when you're waiting on something such as a return phone call. If you tried to work it and you had a question, if you saw a discrepancy on a bank statement and you needed to call the client to ask them what this deposit is and left them a voicemail, leave yourself a sticky note right on that bank statement so that when they call back, you can pull that out, look right at it, and you know exactly where you were and what you needed. And then also, I love the sticky notes tool on your desktop. It is one of my favorite things. I'm able to keep track of what needs to be done, what projects I'm working on, where I'm at with that, if I'm working with someone, what our time frames are. I utilize that all the time. So definitely give it a try and see. You might love it as much as I do. I think the sticky notes on the desktop are fantastic. It helps me to not have 400 random sticky notes just stacked all over my desk. So, all right. So that is the caseload management. I did have one email. I sent an email out to supervisors. I'm going to stop sharing this for just a second. I sent an email out to supervisors requesting some input on caseload management. And I know we talk about this pretty often. One item that I did get back was an email back. And this is a suggestion from Carolyn Williams at the Wheatland office. And she says that above all else in this line of work, it is important to create, find, and figure out your routine. After that's accomplished, never change it. So that works for her, never change it. And that's part of that autopilot stuff that we talked about. Changes do happen. Sometimes you have to say, okay, this isn't working anymore and try something different. But if you have a good routine, this is your routine. You come in every Monday and you check these interfaces, and at the beginning of every month you check these interfaces, and every day at 10:30 you're returning phone calls because you go to lunch at 11 or 11:30. If that's your routine, that'll help you to kind of maintain that time management system all the time, even when you're stressed, even when other things are kind of hitting you. That's your routine. That's what you normally do. So you're going to jump right in and do that. She says, that you can, at that point, trust yourself. So you trust that the you that registers applications as soon as they came in, registered all of the applications when they came in, because that's part of your routine. That the narrative you narrated, did the pre-interview narrative and narrated immediately after the interview. So you know that when you're trying to process that later, you can go right to that narrative and you trust that you did a great narrative, because that is just your habit. That's your routine and that's your habit. And also just sit down and do your work. Try not to use the back burner. Try not to put things off. So one thing that I can think of with that is when I was a worker, I had certain days that I saw clients and certain days that I processed applications that were non-client days. And a lot of times if I, got really busy doing interviews, the change reports, I would be like, well, I can wait until Tuesday to work change reports because that's my non-client day. Well, what happens with that is your change reports really stack up. Other things happen on that day and you might not get through all of them. So don't put things on the back burner like that. And that was one change that I did have to update and find a new system for, was in between interviews, just grab change reports and work change reports in between interviews and applications that you're working, so that you're always keeping up on that and you're always working on it, because otherwise they would really build up on me, and that back burner stuff that could wait until next Tuesday became a problem for my caseload management and my time management. So, and that's the other thing, is to know yourself, to really be able to look at what you're doing and know, hey, this isn't working, and I need to come up with a better system for this. And then to put that into play and to practice it for quite a while until it becomes habit, until it becomes routine. So I thought that was really great, and I do appreciate that information. All right, we also have some caseload management and time management trainings available on the WyoTrain system. If you are interested in taking those, they really are fantastic. We can get that information to you, so just let me know and I will get the code to you to go into the WyoTrain system and take those courses. And they're very similar to like the Wombat security training. They do not take very long. It's great information condensed into a small time frame, so it's not going to take a lot of your time to go in and work that, and to find some other tips and hints and things that might help you with your caseload management and your time management. So, all right, that is all that we have on the agenda for you today. So we got through that much quicker than I thought we would. If you have questions on any of it, whether it's the government shutdown, civil rights, or caseload management, please send those to me and we will get those answered, and I will send out the Q&A to everyone afterwards. Otherwise, have a fantastic day and keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate it. Thank you.